Hello guys, welcome to the second to last video so far for the Revenant class, and this is over the weapons that you get as a base Revenant, so I'm not including the Herald specialization. We will go over the weapon that the Herald specialization, Elite specialization, gets in another video along with everything else that the Herald gets. And basically, these here are the weapons that you get as a base Revenant. You can use a hammer, you can use a mace, an offhand axe, a staff, a sword, an offhand sword, and a spear. And spear is the only underwater weapon that the Revenant has access to. The first weapon that we're going to go over is the hammer. So the hammer is the specialization Jalus's weapon. So it's meant to be a little bit more towards the defensive side, meaning that you can do a lot of stuff with it that's very defensive, such as you create a mist in front of you that will block projectiles or helps you sustain yourself better by being your only ranged weapon as a Rev. It is our only ranged weapon, and you heard correctly that it is a ranged weapon. So the first skill,
feel free to approach the console and begin combat practice. If you have any questions, I'm all ears.
So we are going to be using a combat golem in this instance. The first skill is Hammerbolt. Hurl your weapon at an enemy striking foes in its path. It deals a fair amount of damage. Right now I'm in full Condi gear, so it has a slightly different base damage than you would get in full Zerker. So it does deal okay damage, but keep in mind it is not going to be your heaviest hitting weapon out there. Your next attack is going to be where you slam your hammer into the ground with creating a cascading eruption of damage. So the next one is going to be Phase Smasher. You leap through the mists to your target area. When you land, damage and chill foes in an area, then teleport back to your previous location. This one will, as it says, chill. It also has a slight evade to it, in okay radius. It is a blast finisher, so you can use it in conjunction with some of your other skills in order to get might or swiftness and so forth. All of the skills have a range of 1,200. Doesn't matter which skill you're using, except for Field of the Mists, which just does a path in front of you like that, which will block projectiles. So, yeah, that obviously doesn't need a range. And that is our next skill, Field of the Mists, which create a field of the mist to block incoming projectiles. It has a duration of 6 seconds, width of 240, and it is a combo field dark, so you can combo field with it. And the last skill on the hammer is Drop the Hammer. Summon a massive hammer from the mists to strike the ground. It is a break bar skill, so you can use it to break bar. It can hit up to 5 targets, knocked down, which is the part of it that's the break bar, and it deals a fair amount of damage as well. It does have a charge up time, however, for it to actually activate. So we're going to show each move. Here's the auto attack. We're hurling hammers at this guy and strafing because that's what I do. Second attack, it will have 3 instances in which it can hit it. So it's off cooldown. There's the second attack again. Third attack. Fourth attack creates this nice little wall in front of us that'll block all incoming projectiles, at least in front of us. So if you turn your back to the foe and it's shooting arrows at you, don't expect it to block it. And your fifth attack. And that one does take a little while for it to hit. What's nice about the hammer is it is very unique. No other class in the entire game has a ranged hammer. We are the only class that gets the ranged hammer. However, it is our only ranged weapon, so be certain to keep that in mind if you want to range foes and you don't much like the hammer skills, that this is your one and only ranged weapon. Our next set of weapons are a little bit more exciting. They are 2 DPS weapons, and that is our mace and axe. We're going to go over the mace first and then go over the axe, but these are generally used in conjunction with one another, being the fact that they are the ones that go with the legendary demon stance, Malix, and thus are our Condi weapons. So they're the only weapons that we have that deal more than just chill. The first one that we're going to go over is the mace. The mace has a set of 3 skills that it cycles through during its auto attack, which is Misery Sweep. Swing your mace at your foe. It deals 296 damage. It deals a Torment and hits up to 3 targets with a range of 130. Very short compared to the hammer, is it not? The next one is Anguish Sweep. Sweep your mace back for a second blow. It deals a little bit more damage, applies another stack of Torment, and again hits around 3 targets and has a very short range. The last one is Manifest Toxin. Deliver a crushing blow that sends toxic energy chaining to enemies behind each target. This one does deal poison, and it is your hardest hitting skill. It has a chain damage if it managed to hit multiple targets. In other words, as it said, it chains to other enemies behind each target. So the chain effect will be lower damage, but it'll hit more than one target again. Number of bounces is 3, so it can hit up to 3 targets. Number of targets that it originally hits is 1, and chaining distance is 300. So this one has a little bit more of a range to it, as long as you strike the first target in front of you, than the other one. And it also gives you 2 stacks of poison, which is super nice. Your next skill, your skill 2 on the mace, is Searing Fissure. Smash your mace into the ground, causing flames to erupt from the mists. It deals a base damage of 112 in full condition gear. It has, of course, Burning, which is going to be your highest Condi damage skill. Well, Condi, period. It's the highest Condi in the game. The number of targets it can hit is 5. It pulses 4 times, so it does quite a nice effect there. Has a duration of 3 seconds and is a combo field fire, which means if you smash into it, you're going to be able to get a blast finish and end up with might, or other such things, depending on what you hit it with. Your last skill on your mace is Echoing Eruption. Leap at your foe and deliver a massive attack that cascades outwards. Each attack area is a blast finisher. It deals 874 damage in full Condi gear. Applies 5 stacks of Torment. Number of impacts is 3. Number of targets affected is 3. Radius is 180. It is a combo finisher blast. And it has a range of 410. So what is nice about this is, as long as you remember to do this, if you hit Searing Fissure first, so skill 2 for me, and then hit Echoing Eruption, you end up gaining some might. Just because you strike within your Searing Fissure, you have to be certain to strike inside the Searing Fissure though, and then you attack again with Echoing Eruption. So this is what this weapon does. This is the chaining attack, so it just will keep applying those torments and poisons onto that guy. Your next one is going to be Searing Fissure. It'll apply your 5 stacks of burns, because well, 4 stacks of burns, because it pulses 5 times. And we'll just keep doing that. And then, of course, your third skill. And that was using it in conjuncture there. Okay, move back a little bit so I'm not auto-attacking and keep auto-attacking. And once again, the third skill. Your next weapon is going to be the axe. The axe is interesting in the uses that it gets with a Revenant. We end up using it both for our Condi build and for our DPS build. And it is because it's just a great utility weapon in and of itself. It deals more damage. It also has a gap closer enclosed with it, which is super nice and super rare for the Rev. And it is our only damaging offhand weapon. Our sword, when we go over sword, is not a damaging weapon. So I forgot to turn that off. So our first skill is Frigid Blitz. Hurl your axe at the target, damaging and chilling the foes the axe passes through. When the axe reaches your target, shadow step to it and deliver a large blow. So the pass-through damage is fairly weak. It's 127. It's kind of nice flavor text, though, that you end up dealing damage because you're passing through the mists and through your target, which is just kind of cool. And the final damage is, of course, pretty high at 1,271, again, in full Condi gear. You will chill and slow your target, which makes it a fairly nice filler for break bar. Also, it can strike up to 3 targets. It is unblockable and has a range of 900, making your offhand axe your second longest reaching weapon in the arsenal of the Revenant. Your next skill is Temporal Rift. Slice into the mists, creating an unstable rift. After a short duration, this rift will collapse in on itself, pulling in enemies. Damage is 635. It, of course, applies 3 stacks of Tormenting. Also applies Confusion, which is nice because it means that your enemies will be damaging themselves for a little while. Has an effect of up to 5 targets, a duration of 1 second, width of 300, and range of 900. So, also, this, because of the fact that it ends up pushing your enemies and pulling them towards the rift itself, will end up being a break bar skill. It is a fairly useful break bar skill, and I use it quite often as such when I'm not running my Condi build, because I use it as a normal attack in the Condi build. So this is what those 2 skills do. Here's skill 4. I'm spec'd into Condi, so it's also adding other Condis. And as you can see, when it's off cooldown again, we hurl the axe, and we teleport to the target, and through the target, so you end up right behind it. Now with the skill 5, that's basically what it looks like there, and it applies the Torment. We'll go through one more time. I don't believe this guy can move, otherwise if he could, you would actually see the target move a little bit as it hits it. So, yeah, he can't move. So basically when you see those little tiny lines that come out outside of it, it's when the pull effect is starting and right when your break bar effect is going to hit with it. Because otherwise it does have that slight delay because of the animation, where you don't end up having the break bar be affected until the animation hits and then the break bar is affected. But it's still nice to have the option of having an offhand weapon that has this nice break bar effect. And it is a fairly quick animation. Our next weapon comes from Ventari, and thus is our actual healing weapon. This one's currently set to Vipers because I was using it as Vipers. I do have a second one that I just keep as a healing staff because I can't change sigils on a legendary weapon. Otherwise I totally would. Anywho, that's not what this video is over about. So basically the staff is our healing weapon. It is designed around the legendary stance of Ventari, which is our healing stance, our healing legend. And so most of the skills that will be on it are fairly defensive or have actual healing application to them. Your first one is your chaining auto attack, which starts out with rapid sweep. Sweep your staff at your foe. Very simple. It deals damage, hits a max target of 3, and has a very short range. Next one is forceful bash. A little bit more damage. Hits 3 targets. You bash your foe with your staff. Again, kind of simple. Your next one is actually where the staff for the Revenant is really cool and really great. You cleave your foes around you with your staff, creating healing orbs for you and your allies. The damage is 2 times, so it's 2 times that it hits at 978, and it has healing of 165. It drops max of 2 orbs, number of targets 3, and is a combo finisher whirl. However, the orbs is where it's at. The orbs are what give you the healing effect of 165. Fairly low because I'm not in healing gear. But those orbs will drop either at either side of you or around. So if you are actually planning on healing on a rev, strafe around your foe so you drop it all around and get all your melee guys all healed up. But we will go over that in a healing video, not in this video here. Your next attack is a kind of a dual thing. You have Punishing Sweep. Sweep your staff at your foe. Gain access to the Deliberating Slam if your foe is using a skill when struck. So this one I don't actually use very often. Like with every attack that has such a wording, it is extraordinarily hard sometimes to get to it, and you end up with the access to the other one only if they're using a skill. So you have to be fairly careful. I can't demonstrate what the other one will be doing against the golem because the golem is not going to be using a skill against us. It's just standing there. Anyways, it does apply weakness, which is great. It cuts down on their regeneration and creates feeble stuff. Number of targets affected is 3, and range is again 130. Imbue your staff with the mist when you get to Deliberating Slam energy and slam it down, damaging and dazing foes nearby. So this damage is actually fairly good, and I kind of wish you could use it a little bit more often. And without that flavor text there, it would be pretty nice to have the staff have a little bit more damage than it does, especially since revs use it all the time. Your next skill is going to be Warding Rift. Create a rift from the mist, warding you from attack. While the rift is open, projectiles will hit nearby foes, blinding them. So this is kind of a reflect, but not really a reflect. I use it all the time as a defensive skill when I'm just running in the open world, because I run a lot with the staff instead of another weapon, because it's faster to run with the staff. And this way, if I'm running through a bunch of people who are shooting projectiles at me or trying to damage me, I just use Warding Rift and keep going on my merry way without taking damage. It's super nice. Your next skill is perhaps one of the more important skills on the staff. It is Renewing Wave. Send out a wave of mist energy that heals and removes conditions from allies. It also removes conditions from you, so keep that in mind. Healing done is 1,295 on a full Condi set of gear and build, so it's not half bad considering we have 15k health, and it heals 1k of that health. The conditions removed is 2, the number of targets affected is 5, the radius is 300, and it is a combo finisher blast. So, another blast finisher. But this one is perhaps one of my favorite skills for the Rev to have on the staff, simply because access to Condi Cleanse is very nice on especially when you don't have access to a lot of Condi cleanses. Your last and the most important skill on your staff is going to be Surge of the Mists. Charge forward, knocking back enemies that cross your path. The damage done is 3,168. The evade is 1 second. The knockback is 120 if you're actually hitting the foe. The number of impacts is 8, and the number of targets affected is 3. The range is 600. Now, why Surging Mists is perhaps the most important skill on the staff is because of the fact it is your major break bar attack skill. As we went over with Axe, 5 was great, yes. However, when it is up and when you can weapon swap to your staff, you always want to use Surge of the Mists on break bars. This is when if you've ever teamed up with a Revenant, or if you play a Revenant, you notice whenever you use Surge of the Mists, the break bar is just going to drop fairly quickly, depending on the health of the break bar. And Surge of the Mists is just amazing for break bars. I love that skill so much. So let's go over what each attack does now. So here's the chaining of the main attack. As you can see, we dropped 2 orbs at our feet. Another 2 orbs. It's fairly quick with these orbs, but they will just keep dropping. And now skill 2. As you can see, skill 2 ends up going on cooldown, and we don't end up getting the second one because obviously the golem is just standing there and not attacking us back. Your skill 3, which is harder to demonstrate, but you basically just have this humming up in front of you, and it will block projectiles and other attacks. Again, it's a forward block, so you be careful when aiming, because otherwise you won't end up blocking what you're trying to block. Renewing Mists doesn't have an attack, but it creates that nice animation. Will heal you and remove several conditions from you. Sorry, it's fun watching the animation on 3. So again, Renewing Mists. And now for the main skill. That one has a very long cooldown. And it has a long cooldown because of how good of a skill it is, in my opinion, there. And basically, whenever a break bar is up and you're out in the open world or in a fractal or in a raid, and you're actually supposed to break the break bar of that thing, and you're on a Revenant, be certain to use this just to break the break bar a little bit faster. Also combo it with all the other massively amount of break bar skills that the Rev gets, because Rev is OP in break bars. Alright, our next weapon is going to be Main Hand Sword. And yes, I mean Main Hand Sword. You also get the Offhand Sword. These are used, or were around the lore of our legendary assassin stance. So this guy here, our legendary assassin stance, Shiro. And basically you end up with dual wielding swords for this legend. However, most people use sword-axe combo. So first we're going to go over the Main Hand Sword. Like with the other couple weapons besides Hammer, because Hammer is weird and does not have a chaining effect on its skill 1, you have the Preparation Thrust, stab your foe with your sword, inflicting vulnerability. This will deal 640 damage in full Gandhi gear, will apply 1 stack of vulnerability, and has a number of targets that it can hit up to is 3. Again, with most melee weapons, it has a melee range of 130. Brutal Blade, slice foes, damaging them and inflicting vulnerability. This will damage for 683 damage, so only a little bit more damage, but this time it applies 2 stacks of vulnerability, making for, within your training attack, 3 stacks of vulnerability. Again, number of targets that it affects is 3, and range is 130. Rift Slash. Slash foes, creating a rift on them that explodes for additional damage after a short delay, and it is a very short delay. The damage is 768, the rift damage is 186, the number of targets affected is 3, the duration is 1 second, the radius is 180, and the range is 130. Now that's a lot to take in. The radius here is actually meaning for the rift, not for the actual sword slice itself. The rift radius is going to be 180, whereas the range of the actual sword is just 130. And that is also what it means for the duration of the... What it's meaning by the duration is the duration of the rift. Your next skill is going to be Precision Strike. Strike nearby foes with precision, sending out blades that damage and chill them. The damage is 619. Obviously it applies chill. Number of targets affected is 3. It is a combo finisher whirl and a range of 450. It's a fairly nice skill used also for break bars or just slowing enemies in instances that you need to actually slow the enemies. Your last skill on your Main Hand Sword is going to be Unrelenting Assault. Shadow Step and Unleash the fierce attacks on nearby foes, gaining might each time you damage a foe. The damage done is 487. Of course, you gain a stack of might, which increases your power and condition damage. You evade for 1.5 seconds. The number of hits on the target is 5, so you can also hit up to 5 targets or hit 1 target 5 times. And the range is 450. Keep in mind when using Unrelenting Assault, if you have multiple targets clustered close together, it will end up hitting those targets randomly for the 5 strikes. You won't get all 5 strikes on a single target. However, when you use this on a single target, all 5 strikes will end up on said target if they aren't surrounded by other enemies. So on our little training golem here, all 5 strikes will end up there. Let's first display skill 1. So here's our chaining attack. You can actually see the little rift coming up on the screen as I chain the attack. And you can also see this is just us doing the chain attack. We're staying pretty close at 10 to 14 vulnerability, depending on how fast I click the button. And of course, I'm every now and again applying conditions because of my spec, but yeah. The second one here, Precision Strike. Back up, back up. Let's stop attacking. And again, Precision Strike. And I just kept attacking. You can actually see when you use Precision Strike, there's a couple more strikes than just that one little whirl that we make. So, one more time. With that rift thing, it's, I think, going through your original 2 attacks with that still. So, you're not losing DPS there. And of course, Unrelenting Assault, which is one of the coolest abilities you get to see. Keep in mind also when you use Unrelenting Assault, you cannot predict where you're going to come out. If your target is moving, you will move with your target, and it'll be random where you come out on what side. See, I came out on the opposite side, but before that, I still came out on the opposite side. So it is the opposite side that you come out on, but just be careful if you use this next to a cliff. Ah, no, it is not always the opposite side you come out on. I came out on the same side that time, so I stand corrected. The next weapon the Revenant has access to is Offhand Sword. So I'm using a different sword just so I can tell the difference, and because this one is actually my offhand sword that I use when I use Offhand Sword. It has the sigil of air on it. So Offhand Sword is the other weapon we gain access to with the lore around Shiro and that legend. You end up with 2 here, which is Duelist Preparation. Assume a defensive stance, blocking incoming attacks. Slice through the air. Well, if you end up with a successful attack hitting your said sword, you will end up with Shackling Wave. Slice through the air, sending a wave of energy from the mists towards your foe. Damage is 640. Immobilize said target. Number of targets that affects is 3. This one, like with the staff too, is going to be a little bit harder to get because you actually have to have that perfect strike. So this time it's just blocking. At least they're not having to use a skill with it. They're just blocking that, and it's a great defensive weapon for these reasons. And you can mobilize that foe and you can run away if you so wish. Your next one is Grasping Shadows. Stab your foe, connecting them to you, shadow step backward and pull them toward you. Damage is 1088. You gain Fury, which is super nice that you gain Fury. You also chill them. You have a pull range of 600, attack range of 130, and a shadow step range of 600. So basically you're pulling them 600 and you're shadow stepping back 600. One key thing about the Offhand Sword is when you are actually using an Offhand Sword, be super careful of your positioning, like with anything else that you end up moving through and not having control of where you're going to come out of. If you're standing with your back to a cliff and you're close enough to the cliff edge, you will fall off that cliff to your doom. So be just super careful. Now, he can attack us, so demonstrating fully what the sword can do, Offhand Sword can do, is kind of pointless, but this is what it looks like when you're blocking. Like with most blocks, it has a channel skill. And if it connects, you end up immobilizing them. So one more time, we will pretend that we're being struck by something and do this. It looks fairly cool because it creates a tiny little shadowy rift shield in front of you. I love that animation. And here's skill 5.
I feel furious.
So with any other foe, that would have ended up shooting him back with me. However, since all these kitty golems are legendaries, you cannot end up having him follow you, which is super sad. So again, and that is your sword offhand. So we just ran to a body of water in order to see the skills displayed before us on this nice little mini screen here for our nice little underwater weapon, which is the spear. Now, Revenant's spear is extraordinarily interesting in the fact that we actually technically have 2 auto attacks, except for they aren't chained auto attacks. It's the first and second skill that you end up auto attacking with. One is more Condi based, and the other one is more raw DPS based. One is ranged, one is melee. Now, the one that is on skill 1, which is your automatic repeat one, is your Spear of Anguish. Throw Mist Spear towards a foe, inflict increasing durations of torment the further away your foe is from you, which kind of sucks if you're playing a pure Condi build and you're trying to kill something underwater, because generally speaking you're in melee range. So you're only doing 0 to 400, which is 1 stack of 4.5 seconds or so. Anyways, the 800 plus range is 7 seconds of torment duration. The 400 to 800 range is the 5.5 seconds of torment duration. And of course, the melee to 400 range is 4 seconds, 4.25 seconds of torment duration. It is a combo field finisher for physical projectiles, 20% chance. Of course, the range is 1,200. Your next attack is going to be Rapid Assault. This is another auto attack, so it will never go on cooldown, much like any other auto attack. You rapidly strike your foe in front of you, inflicting vulnerability. Damage is 520, so the damage is a little bit higher, actually a lot higher, raw damage-wise, than your Spear of Anguish was. So you have the 520 there. You keep inflicting vulnerability. The number of targets that you can affect is 3, and your range is 270. So this one is your melee auto attack. It is a very creative way to solve the issue of giving the Revenant 2 underwater weapons, since we were originally designed to only have 1 weapon at a time, much like an LE or a engineer. Your next one is going to be Venomous Sphere. Launch a sphere from the mists, outward from the mists. The sphere will attack nearby foes as it travels, poisoning them. So base damage 65, very low. Of course, you gain access to poison, which is super nice for a Condi build. And number of targets that I can strike is 5. Interval is 1.5 seconds. The radius is 300, and the range is 1,200. So Frigid Discharge. Detonate the sphere to cause it to explode, damaging and chilling foes. This is where your raw damage comes in on your spear. So you detonate it, so you hit the skill twice, and you chill foes, dealing damage to at least 5 around it, with a radius of 300, and again it has a range of 1,200. So, Igniting Parade. Throw your spear, at your foe. Upon impact, damage your foe and connect to them through the mists. While the connection is active, you apply burning. So the damage is 326. Igniting Brands pulse burning over time, and in connective, throw early to shadow step to your target. So as a Condi build, you want this to stay connected. As a raw DPS build, you want it as a gap closer so you can use your skill 2 underwater. Interval is 1 second, range is 1,200, and of course it applies burning. Your last skill on the spear is Rift Containment. Create 2 rifts, one above and one below your target. After a short delay, these rifts will create a barrier from the mist, preventing foes from crossing. Damage is 405, pulses 4 times, and radius 240, range is 1,200. Now, this skill just looks really cool underwater. That's basically the only thing I'll say about it. It just looks really cool. So we're going to go find a turtle, or something to kill underwater. Ah, there's a turtle. So your first skill is going to shoot out like this and apply torment and bleeds. Your second skill looks like this, and we'll just quickly kill him off there. Your third skill, let's get a little bit ranged here. We'll shoot that orb, and then you can detonate it. Shoot that orb, or just continue auto-attacking. So we're seeing a little bit more of the auto-attacks there. No one's been here for a while, obviously, killing these turtles. Okay, here is your range 3 again. And of course you can detonate that orb. Or completely miss like I did. And of course your skill 4. And then skill 4 Shadow Step. And of course that was an epic fail on my part. Let's go find another turtle. There's something somewhere around here. Did I tap target to? Oh, he's above ground. You're useless above ground. So, let's go for Shadow Step. And then here's your skill 5. So, that is all of those weapons. So, we are going to demonstrate what some of these weapons do. I'm changed my spec a little bit. My gear is now all Zerkers. And I'm now spec'd a little bit differently. I kind of sort of went with a different spec because we're pretending Herald does not exist right now until the next video. And I just wanted to demonstrate what some of these weapons do together. So this is the shield axe combo. Sorry, not shield axe. Your sword axe combo.
Might and glory.
And we're not dealing nearly as much damage as we could because we aren't using any of our utility skills. But and it feels very weird not using utility skills. But if you want max DPS, that is raw DPS, you definitely do go sword axe. And then of course for defensive, if you need to heal, skill 4, break bar skill 5. Random swing that does absolutely nothing to this golem. And if you need to heal up while in combat too, you can always strafe with your staff here while you're dropping these orbs. Just keep strafing around and you'll pick up the orbs as you move. In order to block, skill 3, break bar, heal. For more on the weapons such as mace and axe, you can go see my condition build video, in which I actually do go over what the mace and axe do in that video, because I was testing them and showing you guys how condition build on a rev would work. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you found the knowledge of how a base Revenant works very informative, and I hope it helps you guys to learn how to play your Revenant a little bit better, or just learn how to play a Revenant in general. I will see you guys in the next Revenant video, which is going to be over the Elite Spec Herald, and down the line, hopefully with the new expansion having been announced, we will see again with the even latest Elite Spec that will come out with that expansion. Who knows what it is right now. Thank you guys for watching. I shall see you later.